Hello guys, welcome to the Security First in DeFi workshop series. I'm Jeff from Binance Smart Chain team, and today we are very honored to invite Rex from DeFiSafety team.
How you
Hello
doing?
Rex. Yeah,
Good to
I
be
I
here.
read some of their blog posts. It's very interesting, and it was for general users and developers to read it. So Rex is actually come from the aerospace field, and I just understand the idea why we say that why today's topic is the process quality, because they Rex come from a very um a field that need very serious and very like clear process. So when you are when I was young, I always hear that a captain's runs the airplane when he take off, he need to check his checklist, check
Hmm.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then he can take off. Because in this aerospace or the aerospace field, a small mistake will cause a huge difference and may ruin a journey or
Hmm.
ruin a whole project. Let's
Yes.
give the time to Rex, and he will explain us in details about the security of smart contracts, security of DeFi.
Wonderful. Actually, on that, my first hackathon, F Denver 2018, the big thing that they went is how can you help? What can you add to the community? Then you figure out what you do. And I saw a lot of similarities between software in aerospace, avionics, and software in the blockchain. Because once it's out, you can't change it; it's irrevocable. So you have to be very careful before you launch it. So at that point, I started on the whole software quality and journey, and it's now led me to DeFiSafety as the way to do it. So I'll
Yeah, that's
test.
good. Yeah, I think like blockchain developers can learn a lot from aerospace engineers.
It helps. It definitely helps.
Yeah, okay. Turn over to you, Rex. Enjoy the workshop.
Okay. All right. Can you see my screen okay?
Yes.
So we'll be talking transparency and process quality. So transparency is absolutely fundamental to what we do. And this is something that you don't have in aerospace, but I learned as I worked through blockchain. Transparency is what a developer shows the users, strangers, in order for them to trust your code. So in DeFi, we're in a non-regulated environment, and you don't. It's not a business that has a place. So you have to build trust for people to be able to put TVL in there. So transparency is how you build trust, and transparency it's what brings users in. So as an industry, we should really work to be consistently transparent, and that will be one of the ways that we're better than traditional finance. And as long as we're transparent, there can be no Panama Papers for the DeFi industry. And even once DeFi is well established and used by everyone, transparency will still remain and still be very important. So all the way through this presentation, we'll be talking about the transparency and what you see. So just quick outline what we'll do. Transparency I did, a very short thing on the DeFiSafety vision, a very little bit about me, and then we'll go through the actual review process, which goes through smart contract addresses, documentation, testing, security, and access controls. I will talk a bit about private repos where you do most of your development privately, and there's a way you can do that and still get a DeFiSafety a review, and then a little bit on preparing for an audit. We'll go through that, and then we finish up. Okay, so the vision of DeFiSafety: we want to build trust for both DeFi users, retail, and institutional. So a big thing with this, though a lot of what we're doing and what we're saying is good for the developers, our customer are the users. So we're focused on building a product, these reviews, for the users. And we want it to be independent, so we're never paid by the developers in any way. Easy to understand, quantitative. In other words, it's not opinions. It's very, very clear on a written process, and auditable. So if some organization wants to come in and say, I want to see exactly how I got that score, all the information is clearly in there. The rules are clearly in, so that how the score was developed will be clear as day. And this also makes any discussions with the developers clear also. So about me, as I said, I'm an aerospace guy. I'm an aircraft software certification expert. This is really what I bring to the table from my experience. So aerospace has an extremely formal process in developing code called DO 178D. I'm using, I would say, the inspiration of that process and bringing it into DeFi. And that's, as I said, how I help. So a little bit about the review process. As I'm sure you'll see, and here's all our Binance reviews du jour, each review is down to a simple color-coded square with a score. And then if you click on that score, then you will get it'll break down into code and team, documentation, testing, security, and access controls. And all of these are the aspects that we look at with our checklist of questions, which we then put into a report. And if you click on any of the buttons there, you will see the detailed report, and you'll see exactly why we give the score that we did. So here, is the code actively being used? We give a score of 100% because transaction is 192 transactions a day on this contract. And if it's more than 10, you get 100%. So this is what we mean by it's a very quantifiable and clear how we generate the score. And when we generate the score, we do it on the public data that the protocol puts out. So if they show us something, here's our test suite, but we don't show it publicly, even though we see it, we won't give any points for it. If the protocol doesn't show it to the world, then they get no score from it. And this is why what we're scoring is how transparent they are. And if a protocol is transparent, it's saying, here's my code, here's how my code works. Here's how I tested my code's an example of using my code. Here's the audits that I've done. And here's the control that I, as a developer, have over the protocol. Everything's there. You can check anything, anytime you want. You don't have to ask me. Everything's there. So that is a 100% transparent protocol. It's basically saying, this is what I'm doing. Nothing's hidden. And you can check whenever you want. I dare you. It's all there. The completely untransparent protocol is basically, it's a hole in the wall saying, if you give me $10, I'll give you 12 tomorrow. Bring your money in here. And you have no idea what you're putting in. And you don't know who it is or what they'll do with it. And you can come back the next day and you just hope you'll get $12, but you might not. You have no means of verifying before you give the money. So that's an example of a transparent and not transparent code. So the first thing that we check is, do they say where the smart contract addresses are? Because sure, all contracts are public on the blockchain, but if you don't know the address, it's really tough to try and figure out where it is. So they should clearly publish all of the smart contracts that they're using on that. Preferably, it's a page on the website or in the docs. It can also be in the GitHub repo, preferably not in a JSON file, though we do get scores for that. So, and just going back to the smart contract addresses, this is something where we've seen a huge improvement on the industry, and almost everything in Binance is showing this information now. It's become pretty standard, and that's great. Before it was 90%. So this is something that I've seen improving in the industry, and I'm really happy about that. So documentation. So software documentation is vital. And this is something that I would say the tendency has been for us to see less and less of this, and this is disturbing. So this is more than just a white paper that describes your logic or your math. This is documentation of the smart contract software at the function level. So you sit back and you say, well, why should I do documentation? Documentation says a bunch of things. It says, I know my code and I'm willing to explain it. I've made the effort to do the documentation. Now, especially on Binance Chain, there's a lot of forks. So you've forked the code and you've made some changes and you've gone in there. Then documenting the code says, I understand the code because it's your code now. And the other thing is, if you don't have documented code, if you bring in a new developer, they're going to have an awful lot of difficulty trying to get up to speed. So documented code said, I'm ready for personnel changes. And just because we've seen a lot of Binance protocols that don't have software code. So when I see a protocol that doesn't have any software code, these are some of the things that I think, I don't know, but these are the fears that I, as a user looking at it, think when I don't see any software things. It means they may not have a permanent dev team, so they don't have developers full-time working for the protocol. They're not investing in understanding code. So if you're a small protocol and you got a contractor dev and now you've got money, you should at least hire somebody to do the documentation of the code to be full-time so that he is constantly learning what the code does and all of the aspects continually. Because if a change comes, like a protocol close to you, also on the Binance chain, is hacked in a particular way, you need a dev to go in immediately and say, how can this happen to us? This is the change that they did on their code. Do we have to change our code? Is this relevant? And having software docs means that I've got the people that are in there. Testing. So this is another thing that, testing is basically, here's my code and here's the tests on my code that prove that my code works. Testing proves that you know how to use your code, if it's a fork, as an example, and means that you're able to react fast if there's a weakness found in adjacent code and you want to be able to put it in. So there's a flash loan attack over here. You need somebody to analyze the flash loan attack and to say, okay, I think we should do this code change because that's what the postmortem said. So you need to have all of your tests there and ready so that you can make the code change and then retest your code and make sure it works. So if there's no tests, once again, you're into the same thing. Do these guys know their code? Do they have a dev team in there? So having visible tests is immensely important in giving confidence that you've got a team that is ready for whatever will be happening around them. So the other thing, and that you always see in aerospace, and which we don't see so much or hardly at all even on the Ethereum blockchain and on Binance, is you only deploy the code occasionally, sometimes just once. So run the tests and do a test report. That one time, run the tests where you've got a report that says, these are the tests, these are the number of tests that we did, this is what the tests do, these are the tools that came in, here's the code coverage that was in. And if you got 95% in your code coverage, That's wonderful. Why did you miss the 5%? Just go back and look at that. And then other things that we look, do you have an active test net? So do you have something on Kovan or Rinkeby that will allow you to test changes on your code before you deploy them to mainnet? And what threats are possible and how did you protect against them? So all of this can be put in a test report and published with the deployed code in the test area. So this is definitely a weakness that I see on the Binance Smart Chain, much more than I see in the Ethereum chain. I've seen an awful lot of the reports that we've done that haven't had any public tests, and that really reduces my confidence in a protocol as soon as I see that. So please show your tests, add them to your GitHub. It's something that you can do after deployment, and you will increase confidence in your protocol after deployment simply by putting your tests out there. Finally, you come in with security audits. Now, security audits, if you sit back and you look at what happened with the security audits, it's a process that was started in 2017 in the ICO craze on the Ethereum blockchain. And the idea is I'm going to get a third-party person to take a look at my code and give me a report to find out if I've got any bugs. And that makes wonderful sense. And it is a great thing. It's a good part of the process. It's something that you should do. But if you really think about it, the audits are technical reports that are commissioned by and for the protocol. In other words, they're not written for the users. And if you look at today, audits are the main badge of quality for a protocol. So if you look at where we want DeFiSafety to be in the future, we would like the DeFiSafety ratings to replace audits as badges of quality. And we think of this for a few things. One, look at more than just the audit, because some protocols can't get audited and you can still get a very high score without an audit on a DeFiSafety review because you can prove that you did all the steps. Our reports are designed for the users. So a badge of quality should be something that the readers are supposed to be able to read. So it's sort of as an aside, but this is our aspiration of where we hope the DeFiSafety brand will go. So what do we look for when we do an audit? Now, I'm not an auditor. I am not even a Solidity dev. So I'm taking my experience in aerospace code and I'm bringing it in. But what I can do is I can read the audits and while I may not know every aspect of the code, I understand what the audit report says. And I can tell high quality audit reports from low quality, big faults from smaller reports. So we look, some of the things, ideally, properly, the audit report should be done before you deploy, so that if they find something, you can change things and you can put it in. Frequently, the audits are done afterwards. And so you lose some points for that because you're not able to make the changes that they recommend afterwards. So also you look at the scope, the duration, so if it's a 3-day audit on a very complex DeFi Lego, then that reduces some of the strength of the audit because they're not able to take the time. You look at the quality of the auditor and the quality of the report. A report that simply says passed doesn't tell you much. A report that just looks like all they did was run some automated tools on the code and they said passed, that also is not so great. It has value. It doesn't have as much value as it could. So, and it's good if the audit report has the output, we ran all the tests and here's the output of the test report. We ran Slither and this is the type of things that we found. And then they have the findings, the severity and the resolution. And so we read the report and we give a score. So another thing that we've started looking at with our newest processes, we look at the bug bounty. Do they have a bug bounty, yes or no? And does the payout make sense for the protocol? And then finally, are they working with an active team like Immunify to help bring developers in to their code, looking at it for the bug bounty? And remember, when people are looking at a bug bounty, most of the time they're going to look at your code and find nothing. That means that you've got a highly skilled person who spent time looking at your code and will get nothing from it. So in order for them to be incentivized to make that effort, you have to have a really large number to incentivize them to spend the time, because that one time out of 100 when they find the code, the payout sort of covers all the time that they put in. The other advantage with having a very large bug bounty is you can have a black hat hacker who finds a hole in your code and sit back and says, well, I could do this and I could make $5 million, but if I can do a bug bounty of $1 million and it's legal, then I'll just do that. But if the bug bounty is $50K, $20K, and he can make $1 million, well, the incentive is in there. So think of yourself as an attacker when you're doing a bug bounty. And so high bug bounties are effective. And that's one of the things that we do with the score. The last thing, something that a lot of people don't think about. Smart contract code is immutable. But if the code is upgradable, then functionally the developers can change the code when they want. And this is something that is not very well documented for the protocols right now. So this new access control section is basically saying, please on one page, clearly say, is your code upgradable, yes or no? And if it's upgradable, how much can you change it? Now, it may be that I can change the entire protocol, which is great when you want to go from V1 to V2 to V3 and people don't have to reinvest. The main point with that is for the investors, understand that the devs can completely change the protocol, which means that they could do anything with your money. Now, this isn't very strange. When you give your money to a financial advisor or a bank, you're giving them their money and they can do anything with the money. So you're trusting the people, and that's okay, but you should know if you're doing it. Now, if the code is truly immutable, you're not trusting the people, you're trusting the code. But if the code's upgradable, you're trusting the people, and it's different. And people talk an awful lot about, I've got a DAO, this is how the voting happens, and this is how things are decided. But the DAO doesn't change the code. People change the code. So is it a single address? Is it multisig? Who has control of the multisig? Now, we understand that you're not going to give the names of the people in many cases, because often people want that private, but give as much information as you can to give your users confidence that your multisig is in more than one hand. The final thing that we look at is, can the devs pause the protocol? And this is generally a great thing. If there's a hack underway, then they can detect it and they can go in and they can say, okay, stop. We're going to stop all withdrawals and deposits on this part of the protocol so that we can determine what to do next, to do a fix or whatever. All we're saying is if you have that capability, just say so. So this is what we're looking at in the new access control section. And this is, I would say it's a developing section. This is something that people don't normally say. And we're trying to incentivize people to start saying it clearly, because it is something that users should know. Okay, so an awful lot of the protocols that we see on Binance have the repo is pretty much just there's the code. It doesn't look like they developed in the code. So probably the repo that they developed in is someplace else and I can't see it. So that's a private repo. Now, transparency with a private repo is more work, but it's possible. Here I say best score is 94%. So you can show all the contract addresses. That's fine with it. You can document your code, which without requiring a repo. Maybe you don't want to show all the tests because you don't want your repo to be forked too easy. So that's fine, but you can still show a test report, which shows people that I have tested my code and I have a good test set. The final thing, if you have a private repo, and this part is for the developers, obviously, if you do an audit and the code is not shown, at least have a note the audit is applicable to a repo that the users can't see, then at least include a note that says that the audit is applicable to the release software from the auditor. And access controls, there's no change there with private repos. So the main point is, if you're going to do a private repo, you can still do full transparency. It's just a bit more work. Okay, a little bit about preparing for an audit. The first steps, all the steps for a DeFiSafety review are good steps for doing an audit. Because when an auditor comes in, he's going to want to find out where the code is. So we'll look at the smart contract addresses. He's going to want to look at the documentation so we can get up to speed very quickly. And they're very expensive. You don't want, if you can get an auditor for 3 days, you don't want him to spend the first 2 days just trying to figure out how your code works. You want that process to take 3 hours. You do that by giving him fully documented code. And then the test network is also running the tests is always something that the auditor will do. So make sure that all of your tests run clearly. Now, when you're ready to do this, think like an auditor before calling one. Think about the way you use your code and think about how it can be attacked. Perform threat modeling. This is your team sitting down and just trying to think of all the ways it can go wrong. If you can bring some other devs in for that and sort of you do the audit, so do all that as much as you can before you bring the auditor in and use that to improve your code. And then have a complete package, neat and documented. Don't develop in mid-audit. It's a nightmare for the auditors. And get an auditor with the right experience and the specific scope. This link from Status is an extremely detailed what you should do to get an audit, and so that is an extremely valuable resource. So, okay, finishing up, I sort of have two conclusions, one for users, one for devs. So for the users, DeFi is software. When you click confirm, you are executing the software. So you should spend more time thinking about what you see in the software, less on the website and the Twitter posts and the social media, because the money is moved by the software. So you should demand software transparency from protocols, and you have strong power in that, because there's a lot of places where you can put your investments, and so you can walk your TVL. So the big thing is demand software transparency from protocols with things like this. And of course, one way to do it is a demand a high DeFiSafety score. Another is just, where's your software docs? Where's your tests? I don't trust you without that. This is good feedback for everybody. The other point, I'm not going to say, even though we call ourselves DeFiSafety, that just by having a high score that it's safe. Once again, going back to my aerospace background, quality is a process. It's not a destination. It requires steady effort. It requires continual improvement. We're continually changing our process. We're going to make it tougher each time. We're going to ask more from the protocols. As we learn the lessons, there's more things that you've got to check and more things that you've got to do. Yet another reason why every DeFi protocol has to have a dev team, and the dev team has to be up to speed. So as a user, expect that people are always working on their quality and always improving things. Those are the people you should feel safe with your money. So for the users, DeFi is software. So software quality should be top priority. After you've deployed and you actually have some treasury money, software people is where you should be putting your investment. If you can't find people, and God knows with all of the side chains that are coming on now, devs are going to be tougher to find than ever. So if you can't find them, get somebody and train them. Let them document the code, run the tests, learn the stuff, support a few people that are learning so that at least they work for you and they know your tests and they have a good test suite. So these are all in there. So the transparency should show this software capability and effort. And a lot of this you can do after deployment and still get value and still do it. So I very much stress that this is where you should be putting an effort. So once again, quality is a process, not a destination. What we're trying to do at DeFiSafety is to set a standard. So as a developer, you say, what should I do for transparency? Well, answer the 22 questions that we have. And even if you don't have a review yet, you can, if you go to the process and you'll see a blank review all on our Git book, you can do the process yourself and you'll clearly see what you're after. And then over time, we make the standard better. And we're at the 7th variation of our standard now. We're always interested in opinions on how to make it better. We did a review of Alpaca last week, and the guy said, well, why did you do this? I don't understand. And we went, oh, geez, you're right. And we improved our process slightly based on the feedback that he's got. So we want you as developers to help us in the process so that we're continuing to iterate so that this is how you make something safe. This is how aerospace makes things safe, is by documenting things well and then constantly improving, constantly getting better and documenting what you're doing with the improvements so that you know what you did, so you know what you did wrong, so you know what you're correct, and you just keep on doing that process. And that's how we make DeFi safe. And with that, I shall end. Okay, now where am I? Here, yes. Stop share. Okay, Jeff.
Rex, the workshop. We have got security of.
Your audio is a bit off.
Now
I can hear you, but it doesn't sound great. I'm not sure about how other people can hear you.
That's bad. Is it bad?
Yeah, you sound like a Cylon. No, it's not better now.
The network.
Should I maybe slip out and then come back? I'm going to try and slip out. Okay, no, I'll stay here. Got it. So yeah, we're having some audio problems. Jeff is working on switching some things.
Is switch the network? No.
You sound pretty fine. I'm not sure if there's a public chat, if people can hear you or not. Now you've frozen. I cannot find the public chat. So yeah, this is me talking to myself. It's a nice day, nice sunny day here in Montreal. Okay, Jeff is out now. Please stand by.
Hello, Rex. Is it better now?
Yes.
Finally,
Well, that was fun. You sounded like a Cylon robot. It was hilarious.
I don't want this. I didn't expect this happen. So I think this is the internet issue.
I see.
So thank you, Rex, and thank you for every audience. And this is a fantastic workshop. And during the presentations, there's one thing that make me curious is that what DeFiSafety wants to do is try to make the standards, because I'm not a developer, and a lot of users are not developers. Like for us, we cannot understand an audit report from the security audit company. So will be good that to see DeFiSafety can introduce a standard for the general users, so general users can just read the checklist 1, 2, 3, then understand how safety it is, and like this kind of transparency standards can go snowballing. It's very, very interesting. So my question is that, like, I would like to know how DeFiSafety growing in the future. What do you expect?
We're just finishing our seed round, so we actually have some money. We've opened an office. We're hiring people. So one thing you may have, some users may have already noticed, we've increased the frequency of our audits. We're trying to get up to six a week. We did 5 last week. So we'll be doing more reviews. Even today, I hope to do our first Matic review. So we're going to go to other chains. Binance was the second chain that we went to. We are also going to be offering more services in the same area. So we'll be offering services for safety for that. And some of these services will be premium services. And the idea, I'm not going to say too much about the services yet, but the idea is we want to be paid by our users, not by the protocols, not through advertising or any of that, so that we're 100% independent. And by being paid by the users, we're delivering value for the users independent of the protocols. So that's what we're working on hard right now, and certainly in the next few months we'll be offering new services. We're getting ready.
Yeah, that's great. And if you're general users and you use DeFiSafety, you can donate to DeFiSafety on their website.
On the Gitcoin grants.
Yeah. Oh, on the Gitcoin grants.
Gitcoin grants. Cool. Gotta love those guys.
Okay, cool. We got some questions from community. Monday.org. The first question is, how do you help users who need help from you guys? Is that possible to get in touch with you?
So it's always possible to get in touch with us. We've got a Telegram, we've got a Discord. The emails are there. So we love feedback. At this point, user education is not something that we've spent a lot of time on, and it is something that we want to spend more time on. But especially if you have questions about what our reviews mean or what we should do, then please, we want feedback, and come on into the Discord and talk with us 100%.
Okay, the second question is, how does Multisig work, and to whom is it important for?
So you're a dev team, and you've got a protocol, and it's worth $10 million. And because of the upgradability, you could move that $10 million if you upgrade the software. So it's better if the key to allow you to make that change is not owned by one person. So that if that person suddenly isn't available or goes rogue, there's not, they can't take all the money. So a multisig means that, and you define this in software, and there's something called the Gnosis multisig. We actually did a review of it on DeFiSafety. So this is a multisig wallet. So you define the wallet and you say the control of this contract is controlled by these 5 people, and we need 3 of the 5 people, and you can select the numbers to sign it. So you would have to have 3 of the 5 signers sign on, and 2 might be developers, 2 might be big DeFi users. So you're saying that the developers don't have complete control. The community has it in there. So this is the type of information that you would give. Now, you may not want to give the actual names of all the people because you don't want them to get visited in the night by bad people. So that is something that anonymity makes sense. But the community should know that, the contracts are controlled by a multisig. Here's the contract address of the multisig, and it's 3 of 5 or 5 of 9, and the users are at the very least. And this is, I think, something that's still developing. But the multisig, that's what a multisig is and how it works.
Yeah, good to know. Another question is, can you give us few steps as general users to understand audit reports? I think like audit report is quite hard for
If you look at the slide that I did on audit reports, there's some things. Did it happen before or after deployment? Big thing. It's much better if it happened before deployment. Is the report detailed? If it's 4 pages and it says passed, that's a bad sign, because there's not really much there. The developers should say very clearly, this is what I checked, and these are the checks that I did, and here's some of the outputs of the checks, just to prove that they actually did the checks. And then you sit back and you look at, and we found this. So, and they almost always say, this is a big problem, this is a small problem, critical or informational. So you look at the problems that are in there. If they're all informational, that's great. If there's some critical ones, then you look. If they said, okay, this is critical, but we fixed it this way, then that's okay. That's an auditor doing what an auditor is supposed to do. And you should feel happy that it's all checked. So just by reading that type of stuff, that's where you get an overall confidence in the audit.
Okay, thank you. We got another good questions. How recursive must be DeFiSafety reviews since coders can be changed? Since codes can be changed by devs at any moment.
So we try to do a review every, say, 6 months. If a V2 comes out, or a V3, say Uniswap V3, we did Uniswap V3. We're doing Balancer V2 now. So we, when big protocols update, we update them. The other thing is the percentage score changes a little bit when you change the process. And we just went from 0.6 to 0.7. So now we've got to get somebody to go through the 90-odd reports with 0.6 and update them to 0.7. So we're trying to have them no more than 6 months. And that'll be, depending, as we bring more staff on, that'll be, it'll be easier for us to maintain it. But that's the idea. Yes, we understand that things change, and we update them.
Will you put a timestamp on your review?
Yeah,
because
if you click on, like, there's the 1 buttons, you click on it, you get the list of buttons. On the bottom, you'll see the date that we did it and the process number that we did it. So yes, there's a timestamp.
Okay, cool. Okay, so Another question from my side will be, what should a user think when they want to invest in a protocol with a low score? Like we have seen a lot of how to describe this kind of project. They don't do a lot in smart contract, but they just promote and do very good marketing. Like,
Yeah.
do you have anything want to say to these users?
Well, I mean, it's user beware. So try to take a step back and remember you're not putting your money on the marketing, you're putting it in the code. And people that are upfront about here's my code, here's how it works, for me are much more trustworthy. If not, then you're just going into a risk. And as I said, the maximum risk that you're in, and some of these, it's little more than here's a guy on the internet. If there was no DeFi, it was just a website. Wire $10 to me, and I'll wire $12 back tomorrow. Would you do that on a website? So if you look at DeFi and you step back from all of the blockchain stuff, if they're not telling you anything and they're just saying, give me your money, it's no better than that. And that's the risk that you're taking.
Yeah. We want to recurring educate our users to read their website, to do your own research before you invest or try every project. This is very important.
Totally agree.
Yeah. I did. Let me scroll this a little bit. Another question: is it possible for simple users to decide to decode a code if it's safe or not? If it's safe or fake?
So reading the code is hard, and if you can do that, then be a dev in DeFi. That's big money. This is where, if you're documenting your code and you're saying, okay, here's my code, here's all the documentation on it, it's much harder for you to hide something, hide a backdoor, because all the code's there. So it's not impossible, but it's much harder. So this is why asking for code documentation, tests, because somebody's going to try the test and suddenly realize, oh, wait a minute, there's something here. So this is where the code documentation and the public tests really they reduce the chance of somebody hiding something, but they do not eliminate it. No.
Yeah, I think this is one point that I would like to see how DeFi safety will go towards, because we all know that DeFi is permissionless, so this kind of trust can go snowballing very, very fast. With more people use it, they will get more trusted. I think same thing will happen on DeFiSafety websites.
I sincerely hope so. As I said, we want to, our idea is to give trust to the users. That's where we're aiming for and what we're improving
on. This will be, since you are here, Rex, can you tell us which DeFi protocol are trustable?
You look at highest scores on DeFiSafety, and those are the ones that I put my money in. So it's pretty much in there.
Okay, seems Rex is skiing in the game for his review. I sent initially. Where's my very first questions? Important. Okay, yeah. Let me scroll. One user said you mentioned about the seed round. Do you have a project of your own or a DApp?
No, we don't. At the moment, there's no token for DeFiSafety. I won't say there won't be. It's something we're thinking about, but we have nothing at this point. So there's a lot to be said for DeFiSafety being owned by the users, and we like that, but we want it to be done very carefully so that the incentives are all good. We don't want to be a coin with, just number go up. If we do this, we want to be owned by the users in a way that helps the users and keeps us very clearly on our track. So we're doing research with DAO people on how something like this could be done. So we might do it or we might not. We have not made a decision.
Okay, yeah. So you can, if you check DeFiSafety's Twitter, you can see their posts to choose the projects they want to review.
Yes. We've got every week we do a thing on what projects to vote for. There's also a request channel on the Discord. So please let us know what you want done. And we're working on doing it. And we're probably going to hire somebody else to sort of increase our bandwidth shortly.
Okay. Last question from my side. Why should a protocol invest the effort to get a high score?
Well, it proves that they're working on their software quality. So a protocol should do it because they're proving to the users that I'm working on my software protocol. And you flip it around, there's a couple of flash loan attacks on adjacent protocols. You have confidence that they have a couple of people who are looking at that know the code, that know your code, and are ready the next day, that day, to sit back and look at the code and sort of say, well, should we do something? Should we get there? If a protocol just has a rented developer, they just use contract developers. After there's a bunch of flash loan attacks, you're not going to be able to get a contractor because everybody else has got them. So you need to have your own people. So giving confidence that you've got your own team. And if you're a multi-million-dollar protocol with a treasury, you can fund this. So giving the users and yourself the idea that I've got these people and they work for me and they'll be there, that's why you should make the effort to improve after you've deployed. And there's a lot you can do.
Yes, this is important. Like for Binance Smart Chain team, we call for every BSC project to focus on security. That's why we want to hold a series of workshops about security first in DeFi.
These are great workshops.
Yeah, I think this is one compliment for you. Like one user said, DeFi protocol checked by you will go skyrocket.
Well, I hope so for their sake too.
Okay, I think that's it for today. Do you want to have something for the audience to sum it up?
I think the summaries that I did in there, like as a user, really think about it's DeFi software and look at the software, look at the documentation, or just look at the DeFiSafety score if we have one. And if you want to invest in something, let us know. I mean, Iron Finance, I know, is one that we're getting a ton of requests, and that should be out in the next day or two. So we're really working hard on reviewing as much as we can.
Okay, thank you, Rex. And we are going to close the workshop today. See you in the next workshop.
Excellent,
bye-bye,
Jeff.
guys.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure and a privilege to be on here.
Bye.
Bye.